Education can never break this commitment. And so, taking inspiration from the martyrs and the freedom fighters of Gaza, we will also continue to resist. Free Palestine.
Let's hear it for Sim. Thanks, Sim. I'd like to now introduce Rhiannon Willow, who has just sat down. Sorry, Rhiannon. Rhiannon is a graduate student in physics, a member of the Graduate Employees Organization and the Tahrir Coalition, a wonderful comrade. Welcome, Rhiannon.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Rhiannon Willow and my pronouns are she, her. I'm a physics PhD student at the University of Michigan, where I also work as a teaching and research assistant. I'm speaking here today because the University of Michigan holds an $18 billion endowment, and they have chosen to invest a sizable portion, multiple billions, into the state of Israel, as well as the many corporations that arm this illegitimate settler state and otherwise enable its genocide against Palestine. I'm here today because the university has chosen to enact violence against their own students rather than to divest from genocide. I'm here today because university police officers severely brutalized me, resulting in a debilitating concussion that I'm still dealing with right now. I'm here today because I believe that Palestinians deserve to live in safety in Gaza as well as the entirety of their indigenous land of Palestine, free from settler colonialism. The University of Michigan loves to advertise their rich history of student activism. Yet, over the last 9 months, they have shown that anyone who dares to question their financial and vocal support of the state of Israel will be met with severe repression. On May 21st, the Board of Regents and President Ono directed the campus police officers to violently raid and destroy the Gaza Solidarity Encampment, which student demonstrators had established a month prior to call out the university for funding the genocide in Gaza. Early that morning, no less than 30 officers arrived at the encampment before sunrise on an otherwise quiet Tuesday morning, dressed in full riot gear and wielding batons. With no warning prior to their arrival, the officers ordered all persons to clear themselves and their belongings from the diag, stating that we had 10 minutes to do so. Yet, approximately 6 minutes after their very first warning, officers advanced on us and proceeded to indiscriminately dispense tear gas and pepper spray on a crowd of demonstrators. Multiple demonstrators were physically unable to see or breathe after being hit with the spray. While I was rendering medical aid and leading injured friends off the diag to safety, the police singled me out and attacked me. Even though I was off the diag at the time, in the area which the police had designated as a safe zone to evacuate to, the police forcefully dragged me by the arm, threw me to the ground, kneed me in the lungs, and handcuffed me. They slammed my forehead and chin forcefully against the ground, which caused a long-lasting and extremely debilitating concussion, as well as injuries to my neck and jaw, which have still not fully healed. The concussion has brought both my schoolwork and my personal life to a screeching halt. I spent the first few days after the incident needing near total bed rest. I tried to resume my schoolwork, but I quickly discovered that the injury was far worse than I initially thought. A week after the injury, I began experiencing severe nausea, forceful vomiting, blind spots in my vision, and excruciating headaches 24/7. I was forced to go to the emergency room where I was given a CT scan since the emergency providers were concerned about possible bleeding or swelling in my brain. I've been staying with friends because I haven't been able to fully care for myself at home. I've been experiencing severe dizziness, fatigue, memory problems, and constant throbbing headaches. For several weeks, I had to ask my friends to type out even short, simple messages because I would get dizzy from even looking at my phone or reading. Even 6 weeks later, today, simply writing this statement last night was extremely difficult and physically painful, and I'm currently feel like I'm about to throw up just from the heat of the sun. Even moderate physical or mental exertion still makes the nausea, fatigue, and headaches flare up. I was actually scheduled to finish writing my dissertation and have my defense on June 17 for my PhD program, but I've been unable to make any progress on my work due to the concussion. On the day of the raid, 3 police officers arrested me as well as 3 other, On the day of the raid, police officers arrested me and 3 other demonstrators on bogus felony charges and booked us at the Washtenaw County Jail. During my arrest, as well as my time in jail, I was subjected to repeated anti-transgender bias, language, and mistreatment. I was explicitly told that since I'm transgender, I would be placed in solitary confinement for my own protection. Their words. I was kept in solitary for around 6 hours while the tear gas and the pepper spray burned my skin and eyes. I was never given a chance to wash myself off. They refused to allow me my daily medications, and they even denied me my phone call. The UM police also issued me a trespass citation and banned me from all university-owned property for an entire year. I have not been back on campus since then. I had to have a friend get my belongings from my office. They're now seeking felony charges against me, and as Jared mentioned, they're now going to the state level to seek these charges because the county prosecutor has been somewhere between following the law and fascist, but they want him to be more fascist than that. Anyway, so the last 6 weeks have been some of the toughest of my life. I'm feeling immense grief contending with the violence this university has put my body, mind, and spirit through, and all the ways the injuries are still limiting me. And I'm absolutely horrified at what some of my friends have experienced during the raid of the encampment, including broken bones, acute respiratory distress, as well as long-standing respiratory issues, and also irregularities in their menstrual cycles from the tear gas exposure. And of course, we're all feeling a deep sense of loss and bewilderment witnessing this university's willingness to violently attack their own students to maintain the status quo. I will make one point abundantly clear to the UM Board of Regents and President Ono. We have no intention of giving up. When you attack one of us, we all feel it, and it only galvanizes us further into action. None of us are safe when this institution will enact violent repression against anyone who dares to call them out. Regents and President Ono, we demand that you end the violent repression, drop all charges against pro-Palestine demonstrators, and divest from all financial ties to the ongoing genocide against Palestine. Free Palestine forever and always.
Thank you so much, Rhiannon, for sharing your experiences and those powerful words. So appreciate you. I'd like to invite up now another comrade, Dylan Cohen. Dylan is an undergraduate here at the University of Michigan, a member of Jewish Voice for Peace and the Tahrir Coalition. So please welcome Dylan.
Hello, my name is Dylan Cohen. I'm an anti-Zionist Jew and an undergrad at the University of Michigan. By the design of this university, these two identities are forced to be separate. UM prides itself on its history of acceptance of Jewish students, apparently choosing not to employ the Jewish quotas of its Ivy sisters in the 1930s. However, this legacy is besmirched by none other than President Ruthven, whose name adorns our reviled administration building today. In 1940, the Ruthven administration expelled many members of a student organization called the National Student League, a leftist group mostly comprised of East Coast Jews, the very same students who were disallowed from entering the Ivies. The Michigan Daily described NSL as a narrow sect of Eastern Semites, a band of communists, a group of alien agitators. Ruthven provided no reason for their expulsion and refused to acknowledge that they were even dismissed. After Ruthven allowed a junior professor to visit Nazi Germany for an academic gala in 1936, the Hillel organization became vital for the alleged pluralist politically. Ruthven supported Hillel insofar as they advanced religious pluralism on campus and assimilated immigrant Jews into American life. Hillel has always been a place for those of us deemed good Jews by the university, and never a place for the anti-imperialist, the anti-capitalist, nor the anti-Zionist. Today, Santa J. Ono and the Board of Regents continues the true legacy of UM by pursuing cowardly disciplinary charges against multiple students without formal complaint, as well as criminal charges against both students and non-students. When I started organizing for Palestine, I thought it would matter that I was Jewish. I thought that if we could demonstrate that the issue of Palestinian liberation was not a fight between Jews and Palestinians, but rather between colonizer and colonized, that we could ultimately appeal to the conscience of this university. But it didn't matter. When Mark Bernstein called this movement an anti-Semitic mob at last week's Regents meeting, he signaled to us anti-Zionist Jews that we don't belong, that we're the wrong type of Jew. They never saw us reading the Mourner's Kaddish on the Diag. They didn't read our banners at the encampment. The light of our Shabbat candles never reached the Ruthven building. He told us that we didn't count, that we didn't matter. He erased us. The only thing that has mattered so far is that I was human and that I showed up. Because I showed up, I was able to join our encampment prayer watch and prevent people from harassing our Muslim comrades while they were praying. Because I was there on the morning of the raid, I was able to rinse pepper spray from my comrades' eyes and guide them to safety. The fight for Palestine demands action from all walks of life. At Michigan, our endowment fund has invested $6 billion in private equity firms that then go on to invest in the genocide. These funds should be going to our community. We need to raise lecturer wages. We need to uplift the Flint and Dearborn campuses. We need to provide free education because education is a right. Instead, our money is being spent on innovative new missiles that can more accurately target civilians. As Americans, our role is to use our privileged positionality to lift the boot off of Palestine's neck, because that boot is American-made. If we want to stop the kidnappings in the West Bank, the forced starvation of Gaza, and the massacres in refugee camps, we all have to show up. President Ono and the Board of Regents failed to show up at our encampment to discuss our demands in an open-door conversation. Instead, they deployed UMPD to do their dirty work, utilizing excessive violence and state repression tactics because they won't dare to consider divesting from an ongoing genocide, nor confronting the real human cost of their privilege. As an anti-Zionist Jew, I demand that President Ono and the Board of Regents drop the charges and divest now. Free Palestine.
Thank you, Dylan. Next, we're going to hear from Professor Terry Friedlein. Terry is a professor at UM School of Social Work and a member of faculty and staff for Justice in Palestine. She's also a member of Shalom Community Church and was attending a morning service at the Gaza Solidarity Encampment when it was interrupted by the police raid. Welcome, Terry.
Thanks so much. Good afternoon. My name's Terry Friedlein, and I'm a member of Shalom Community Church, as Jared mentioned. And this is a Mennonite and Church of the Brethren Christian congregation in Ann Arbor. We abide traditions of peace and justice, and it is in this capacity that I'm speaking today on behalf of this group. On May 21st, I responded along with over a dozen members of Shalom Community Church to the Tahrir Coalition's invitation to attend a morning sunrise service on the Diag. There were about 14 of us, and we arrived at 4:30 in the morning. Louder. Okay. We gathered in solidarity with Palestinians, nearly 40,000 of whom have been killed by Israel. In 9 months, Israel's military has dropped over 75,000 tons of explosives on Gaza, more than were dropped in Britain and Germany over 6 years in some cities during World War II. And the largest are 2,000-pound bombs. The U.S. has supplied Israel with over 14,000 of these. Many people are captured and trampled under the rubble. Many are starving. These deaths are tragic and unbearable, and they are preventable if the United States government and the public institutions that steward our money, including the University of Michigan and the Board of Regents, would divest from Israel, divest from war, and divest from the military-industrial complex. So on May 21st, we from Shalom Community Church gathered in solidarity with everyone seeking an immediate and permanent ceasefire. That day, we witnessed police spraying chemicals indiscriminately and directly into the eyes, nose, and mouths of people who are standing on the diag in solidarity with Palestinians. Several of our members breathed in chemicals and were affected by the spray, including myself. We witnessed police pushing people who are in solidarity with Palestine, knocking people backward over retaining walls, and then using these moments of disequilibrium and vulnerability to spray more chemicals. The University of Michigan that day punished solidarity with Palestine by using police repression to evict protesters and gentrify the diag. An empty diag isn't the sound of peace, but one of gentrification. The university deployed tactics consistent with routine violence that wealthy and political elites have deployed in the United States to segregate neighborhoods, often by calling police, sometimes with bombs. In a wrongful death lawsuit filed by her family, Breonna Taylor's murder by police used a no-knock warrant, and this murder was linked to an economic development plan for buying up properties and gentrifying her neighborhood. The university's tactics are also aligned with the ways that armed police have arrested and murdered people protesting Cop City, the development and police training facility in Atlanta, Georgia. And these tactics are consistent with the well-documented ways that Israel has terrorized the people of Palestine by bulldozing homes and claiming lands as state property. As one example, Israel has evicted residents in razed homes in Al-Araqib, a Palestinian Bedouin village in the West Bank, nearly 200 times. In some instances, Palestinians are charged for the costs of demolishing their own homes. These actions predate the attack by Hamas on October 7th, and are part of Israel's decades-long occupation of Palestine and the routine violence that has come with it. So we, members of Shalom Community Church, stand with the Tahrir Coalition in demanding the university to divest from Israeli apartheid and war and from the military-industrial complex, and establish a people's audit for holding the university accountable to transparent financial decision-making regarding its massive endowment. We also call on the university, the Board of Regents, and Washtenaw County Prosecutor's Office to drop the charges against people and students protesting in support of Palestine. This includes those arrested in May as well as those in November. We also urge the University and Board of Regents to stop the repression of collective expressions of solidarity, divest from genocide, and drop the charges. And we stand in solidarity with Palestinians and everyone in the world calling for an immediate and lasting ceasefire.
Thank you so much, Terry. Finally, we're going to hear from Professor Stephen Ward. Stephen is a professor in UM's Department of Afro-American and African Studies, as well as its residential college. He also helps lead UM's semester in Detroit program. Stephen was also at the encampment when it was raided by the cops. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Jared. Thank you, students, current and former, and community members who are part of the Tahrir Coalition. So this is a press conference, it's not a rally. I recognize that. But could I please ask us all to say together, Free Palestine? Thank you. And of course, that's not an empty call. That's a powerful call that this coalition has been building for. And I knew some of the students in the coalition before it started. I got to know many others over the course of their work, and particularly the encampment. But I respect all of them. And I want to tell you a little bit about my experiences with them, particularly at the encampment. For those 30 days, they built something, they created something that I have not seen at the university. Perhaps the most beautiful space I've experienced at the university. And they were doing, yes. And we know the misinformation, the disinformation, the lies that have been spread. Let's dispel with those. What they were doing, what they did, what they created is the best of what we try to do in the classrooms and beyond. They studied, they taught, they expressed critical thinking, and they were there to help us all try to build a better world. They built a community of love and human solidarity. And I want to thank them for doing that. and raise up and share with you all and let it be known what a beautiful thing that they created. Which I personally am thankful for, was glad to experience, but more importantly, what they created for all of us. I was also there and saw when the university or the police forces tore it down. So I saw the destruction, which we've already, and the violence we've heard about, in the name of the university, to which we can say shame. More broadly, the university, as we know, has been targeting and repressing students, community members, and their allies, to which again we say shame. One representative of the university, one of the regents, recently called them an anti-Semitic mob. To him I say shame. And stop lying. So thank you to the Terry Rare Coalition and to all of us who are part of this effort to bring about a free Palestine. And along that way, we have to restate the two things. First, to the powers that be, drop the charges, criminal and disciplinary. Yes, please feel comfortable to clap more loudly for that. And secondly, divest. Divest now, free Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Stephen. So I think these speakers have given us a sense of both the deep commitment of the people in this movement to Palestinian liberation, which we understand is totally bound up with our own liberation, and also the human toll of the region's repression and violent suppression of our movement. I want to make one more note before we open it up for questions, and that is, we've heard today about how the fight to divest from Israel is deeply intertwined with the fight against the system of policing and mass incarceration here at home. And in particular, on that note, we have to raise up the name of John Zook Jr., a black man and father living in Wayne County, who less than 2 weeks ago called 911 because he was experiencing a mental health crisis and needed help. The police arrived and killed him within 2 minutes, shooting him 6 times. There must be justice for John Zook Jr., and there must be an end to indiscriminate violence, state violence, here and in Palestine. And we have QR codes here with links for a GoFundMe for John's family, including his son. So please come up afterwards and we can pass around those QR codes for folks to donate. But to return to the regents, we want to again say clearly, drop the charges, divest now, and that includes all the requested charges, actual charges, disciplinary charges that the university is throwing at the movement to try and protect their investments in genocide. And with that, we can take a few questions from the press. So the question is about the university's claims that they have attempted to meet with people and organizations in the Tahrir Coalition, which of course is not true. They have never met with us. They didn't come to the encampment for the 30 days, etc., as you've heard. The question is, what must the university do now? And the answer is drop the charges, divest now, and meet with us and engage. One of the things that's so striking about the regent's position is it is basically indefensible once you actually talk about it. That's why they have to rely so heavily on repression and silencing. So we invite them to meet with the coalition in an open space where we can have a real discussion about their position and what we should do with this university's public resources. But drop the charges, divest now, treat us like human beings. Kim. Kim is asking what will happen if they do not do that. I think you've heard pretty loud and clear from all these folks, and if you talk to other people in the movement, that we cannot endure continued support for this genocide. So we will keep fighting for divestment, and we will keep fighting to keep each other safe, because as you've heard from folks, that is exactly the type of world that we are trying to build and nurture through this coalition and its work. So we'll keep fighting. The question is, why won't the regents and President Ono meet with us? As I said, I think it basically comes down to the fact that their position is indefensible. As I've said, their formal position is that they want to profit from mass murder and the killing of children, the extermination of a people. That's not something that they, I think, want to say out loud, and that's why they respond with just repression, silencing, which goes actually far beyond even the police violence, the criminalization. It spreads across all of the workplaces and classrooms of the university. The university does not want people to talk about what's happening. But we will continue to talk about it, and we will continue to take action, because we cannot, as I said, endure. The people in this movement had decided that they cannot endure being in support of a genocide. We refuse to be complicit. But I would suggest that you ask the regents and Ono yourself, because I would be curious how they explain the lack of engagement.
I'm guessing they might say,
How would I respond to the regents saying that they support free speech and want to protect students? I think, given what we have just heard, it's a laughable position that they're trying to protect students. I mean, again, a lot of this relies on just simple gaslighting. That is, stating the opposite of what is happening and relying on power to try and make that the truth. It's not. The regents have no interest in protecting anyone on this campus except themselves and their support for genocide.
Since the protests have not moved the regents to this point and don't seem to be having an effect in terms of the actual regents changing their mind, I mean, what are the next steps? And what sort of legal remedies are there, especially when you talk about, say, Grand River Solutions violating policy, you know, being brought in after the fact, after making these complaints? Have you contacted any outside legal organizations to maybe assist you with this? What's the next step here to make this actually happen?
So there's a question about next steps, both for divestment and for the various disciplinary and legal charges. And I want to give a shout out to the National Lawyers Guild, which is representing so many of us. It's an amazing service that they provide pro bono, and they're excellent, and we so appreciate their support. Of course, there are the disciplinary and legal maneuvering situations, but the basic answer to your question is mass mobilization. The thing about the divestment movement and the movement against genocide and apartheid is that it is the popular opinion. The question is, how do we express that? And we have expressed that in many different ways, and we will continue to. But on that note, we have, in addition to the GoFundMe for John Zook Jr., which is important, and I encourage everyone to donate if you can, we also have flyers going around for an email zap to Oscar. Kathleen's got them in the back. So if you can participate in that email zap and help show Oscar, this is not the transformative justice that the Office of Student Conflict Resolution purports to be. Do not help the regents in their campaign to silence this movement. So for everyone who is learning about this for the first time at this press conference, come join us. This is an open, democratic mass movement, and we welcome everyone who's interested in building a free society where everyone has the right to liberty and self-determination. Maybe one more question? Wonderful question. So the question is about the email about the clearing of the encampment that Ono sent out right around when it was happening. And Ono and the region's year of democracy and civic engagement. That year has already started. It is the coalition. It is everyone who is organizing together to build a society that is not based in violence, displacement, genocide, apartheid, and oppression. And there's so many people on this campus that we've seen over and over and over who are just down for that. And it's wonderful. The Regents' version, of course, of democracy and civic engagement is exactly what we've been talking about today. It is elite power expressed largely through violence and the carceral system that seeks to silence people who are trying to keep each other safe here and in Palestine. So again, in that email, President Ono tries to invert the truth, as the regents have constantly tried to do, and the year of democracy and civic engagement is part of that. The real democracy is with the people, and the people demand divestment. Okay. Thank you very much. We really appreciate everyone coming out. One note, we will be holding, since we now know that the university is trying to get more charges from the state attorney general, we will be holding a Know Your Rights session this Wednesday at 6 p.m. With lawyers from the National Lawyers Guild there to answer some questions, any questions that folks might have. So there will be information about that in the group chats. Keep an eye out, because the more that we know together, the more we can protect each other and keep each other safe collectively. If you're not in the group chats, just come up to me and I can put you in touch with that afterwards. And once again, please do the email zap and please donate to John Zook's family. Thanks everyone, and Free Palestine.